This was another really productive month for me for reading, which meant it was unproductive in other places. I'll chalk it up as a win. When I get a good book and I just want to read it, I just read it. There are going to be some books here that I don't talk about, and only if it's like so bad I get angry is when you'll probably see a video about those. So often, the books are not bad, it's just I'm not the right audience. That might be too easy on them, but if you want to see which books I'm talking about, you can go on my Goodreads, but I don't need to spend more time on them here. When I look through book recommendations, I'm often looking for specific niche things. You're looking for a blacksmith story? Well, here you go. And so I picked up A King of Ashes by Raymond Feist. Unfortunately, the way that I approached this recommendation was through the lens of tell me an awesome story about blacksmiths. I didn't care about the rest of the book, where there was a romance and bigger politicking of nations at war. I wasn't there for that. I was there for the blacksmith. And so because of that, my expectations were a little askew. Overall, it was good. I liked it, and it just made me want to read more blacksmith stories. Another book I read that I've seen pop up all over the time was A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking. It's a much younger book. It's a fun little fantasy romp, effectively where a kid uses magic with their baking to uncover a mystery and save the day. It was good. I'm not the audience for it, so it's hard for me to be like, oh, it was poor literature. No, that's not what it was there for. Another book was Every Tool's a Hammer by Adam Savage. This one was more of a biography tone where he was discussing his philosophy on being creative. And as I get into this YouTube thing, hey subscribers, how you guys doing? I really am starting to appreciate that artistic side of myself that I haven't before. So I really appreciate that his abilities to, as he says, every tool is a hammer, grab what he has available to him and bodge it together and create what he wanted to create. And that's a really nice point of inspiration. Another book was 1,000 Steps into Night by Traci Chee. This one was cool because actually I met Traci Chee before picking up this book. It was really nice to see that, kind of the human behind the page and behind the words. She was really advocating for women empowerment. The audience of people I was in was for all the right age of young kids. And I was like, man, it's so inspiring in that see that the audience and the author are meeting so face to face and getting this kind of message across. It's a Japanese folklore inspired tale where this girl is cast out from her home and comes face to face with the demons and kind of the mysticism in the Japanese countryside. And it was cool because, again, I love the mythological and folklore elements of any story, so I would recommend it. The last book in this section is The Past is Red by Catherynne Valente, and I really loved it. This was one that was so unique. As I was saying, I've been reading some of these books feel young, and that means their themes are a little more on the nose, the message is a little more didactic, and The Past is Red, it was really artistic. It was really creative. It wasn't just a point A, point B story. It was a really evocative and interesting world where the last survivors of Earth are surviving on the big trash pile, they call it Garbage Town, that is swirling around in the Pacific Ocean, which is a real thing. You should go look that up. But literally living on the bones of past civilization. And it's really interesting just to think about what will be left behind after everything is over. Well, you're still gonna have your plastics and styrofoams that don't dissolve. You're gonna have that big trash pile floating in the ocean. And you're going to therefore have a lot of consumables, a lot of brand names that ends up constituting a new culture and a new life. And so these people on Garbage Town don't understand what came before them. All they have is these passed down stories of the technology and the softness of life that they had back then. But they're living a harsh reality, stranded and marooned with no land in sight. I really, really enjoyed just the storytelling nature of it. It's really something that immerses you into our narrator, Tetley, I believe her name was, and her unique viewpoint, but also just this crazy world that to think about. Moving into the advanced reader copies that I got access to, shout out to the publishers and to NetGalley for making this happen. The books that I've read, there were a few that I was like, wow, these are going to be famous and popular. Some of them I was like, I don't really, I would do it differently. The first one that's really rung out to me is the sequel to the Robot and Monk series by Becky Chambers, A Prayer for the Crown Shy. I made a video on the previous one, I've mentioned it before, I mentioned it again. I love this series so much, and it's because it is a simple read, but it is deep in its thought. You feel like you're intruding on Becky Chambers' own life in the way that has her characters interpret and struggle and think and work through life themselves. And this sequel is just a great continuation to the first. Mosscap is the one who starts to take on and feel that responsibility of others' expectations upon them. It's really sad in a sense to see this childlike wonder be stripped away a little bit. I read this book now almost a month ago, and every now and then I just go, yeah, not many books do that. Another book I read was The Art of War by Wesley Chu. This one was a fun read, martial arts story where you've got your apprentice and your master doing kung fu at each other with a twist. I'm not going to spoil this, but we start off and we're following effectively the Chosen One, this prince who's been trained to defeat Genghis Khan. He's been trained in all the different fighting styles by all the masters of the country. And one master walks in and she looks at this training and goes, no, this is nonsense. And it's just a total reversal of what you would expect, where this person has trained up and they're the best. Then their entire purpose of this prophecy of them being the chosen one is ripped away. Anyway, it was really nice to read, really fun to read. It's the first in a series, and it'd be interesting to see where it goes. And finally, I read Babel by Rebecca Kuang. It's set in a 1700s Oxford, where the British Empire is at its full strength. And in this quiet academic town is the source of its power. In this world, there is some magic that is tied to linguistics and to language. And having such a strong academic presence allows their knowledge to dominate the rest of the world. What I really liked about this book was it was discussing colonialism and racism and sexism and segregation and all of these problems that come with such an imperial power. It really raises and points a finger at the academic. At what point does an academic institutional knowledge turn into real life, real impact pain? This knowledge that allows the British Empire to rule is not a shared free-for-all library that all can have access to. No, it's all about privilege to keep that imperial power in place. Our main characters are mostly those who are lucky enough to be part of the Oxford academic community, but they are there because they are effectively a token representation of their language, a resource that they can be harvested. I think this is one will sneak up on people, where I could see a lot of people be unsettled by it as the book continues, where they realize what they've bought, literally, and they've been bought into, and then it'll get flipped on them and they'll squirm in their seat. It makes you feel, and it makes you think, and it makes you reflect on yourself. That's a good one. For a lot of the recent subscribers, I know that this kind of video is not what you signed up for, probably. You're looking for those shorter sketches. I will go back and forth, so don't worry about that.